Welcome to the Recovery Effect Podcast with Bill Vineyard. Recovery is Bill's passion and his life's work of 30 plus years. Now it's your turn to experience the Recovery Effect, a powerful mix of recovery, spirituality, philosophy, and most importantly, living life as your true self. Now here's your host, Bill Vineyard.
Do you know that they ask this old question, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, almost everyone will say, yeah, it makes a sound. Of course it makes a sound. But you know what? Quantum physics says it doesn't make a sound. No, it doesn't make a sound. Oh, don't. I haven't been smoking too much dope and the LSD of the 70s. I'm not having a flashback. That tree does not make a sound. What it does, it makes air puffs, air waves. And those airways, those air puffs go into your ear, and it does strange things to your eardrum and those little fibers in there. And that, your ear, your internal ear, converts it to sound. It's not sound till it gets to you. You convert it to sound. Now, if you're a long ways away when that tree falls, those air puffs, those sound waves, won't get to you. They're silent. But once they enter your ear, you and you alone convert that to sound. Now, that's a proven scientific fact. You convert it to sound. It's like playing a guitar. You have different strings on a guitar that make different sounds. Well, really, in reality, it makes different sound waves, and they enter your ear, and you turn it into different sounds. There's no sound. And you know what? The reason I'm telling you that is because that's what happened to me. When I was growing up with my grandparents down by that river, we were extremely poor. I mean, I had a house that was 7.5 foot tall. My grandfather built it. Had concrete floors that were wavy. Had an outhouse. Lived down in the ghettos with hookers and gangs and bootleggers and drug addicts. And, we were poor. The whole community knew we were poor. We were the ghetto of that town. But you know what? I didn't know I was poor. I mean, I never did miss a meal, and I was warm. But I didn't even consider that either. I had a lot of fun down there. I mean, my grandmother in the morning would open the door and shoo me out of the house, and me and my buddies would go down by the river, roll up our pants leg, we'd build dams, we'd look for gold, we'd do all sorts of things down there. We'd climb trees and try to reach in there and get a squirrel or the baby squirrels. We'd find little baby magpies and try to take care of them. We'd go fishing any single time we wanted to. We go down to the sand pit and throw in our poles and build a fire, and if we caught a fish, we ate it. I mean, I'm talking 8, 9, 10 years old. How cool was that? It was fun. At dinner time, which you Yankees call lunch, at dinner time, we'd come in and eat, and then after we ate, my grandmother shoo me back out of the house again, and we'd go out and play cowboys and Indians or shoot our BB guns. I mean, we just play baseball in the street, the old dirt road. We just play baseball. And when it got almost dark, my grandmother would call us in and we'd eat supper. Then we'd take a shower and go to bed, get up the next morning and do it all again. I mean, I didn't remember being poor. I didn't remember not having what other kids had back then when I was little like that. I didn't realize that there was anything wrong with being poor or wrong with my material life until they brought in a social worker to tell me that. But then they started telling me I was poor. They started feeling sorry for me. I can kind of remember when it happened. They started telling me how poor I was and how bad my life was. I mean, it was really like, what? Are you crazy? I didn't know that. And then they keep telling me this stuff, and I go, oh, man, my life sucks. I didn't know that up till then. I was kind of surprised. I just thought I was a little boy like everybody else. I didn't know anything about any other little boys. I just knew about me and my buddies, what we did. We had fun. I didn't know he was poor. I didn't know my buddies were poor. I started feeling sorry for my buddy. I thought, man, my buddies, some of them poorer than me. We're poor. Crap. What are we going to do? I didn't know I was poor. I didn't know poor was a bad thing until these people started telling me that. These social workers and counselors and teachers and all those people, they started telling me, you're poor. Oh, God, I'm poor? Up to then, I just thought I was a little boy having a lot of fun. I didn't know it was a bad thing. Society turns poverty into something really bad. They associate it with crime. We have a high crime level because people are poor. No, we don't. I mean, it's not that they can't go get a job. As a matter of fact, those people who rape and steal and rob and sell dope, they're not doing that because they're poor. Come on, folks. doing that. You think that they're making a living at that? Yeah, they're making a living at that because they're immoral, maybe, but not because they're poor and that's the only way out. That's just total crap. That is disrespectful and an insult to the poor. But that's what was fed to me all my youth. They told me I was poor. I remember looking at their faces. It's like, I got a lot of sympathy from this. It's like I realized I had a get out of jail free card. I could be a jerk. And all I'd have to say is, well, I'm poor. I don't have a mommy and dad. I live with my grandparents and look at the house. I got an outhouse I have to go to the bathroom in. And I mean, come on, what do you expect? I didn't know that I had the same moral responsibility of every other person, rich or poor. We still have the same moral responsibility to be moral, good people, no matter how much money we got. My God, can the world get any more insane than it is? I don't think so. I think if it got 1 millimeter of more insanity, we would explode. I mean, we can't get any worse than we are and expect to survive. It's incredible. And that's what happened. I think that was a turning point, or at least an important part in a turning point that made me go the wrong way when I was young. Because by being poor and not having a mom and dad, I didn't have the same moral responsibility as other people. So I didn't have to make good grades. I didn't have to do right. Well, because they'd put their arm around me and act like they understood. I understand, Bill. You can't be any different. You don't have a mom and dad and you're poor. The moral responsibility for my behavior was dismissed or at least lessened. So every time I got in trouble, what do I say? Well, my mom. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I knew my childhood was screwed up, but it wasn't screwed up because I was poor or because I had to go to an outhouse in the 60s, which wasn't cool. My friends would ask me, where's your bathroom? I'd point at the outhouse. They'd say, are you serious? Of course I'm serious. What's the problem? That wasn't very cool. The point I'm trying to make here, just like the puffs of air, the sound waves that a tree makes when it falls in the forest and it enters your eardrum and is converted to sound, but there is no sound until you make it sound. That's what I did with everything these people were telling me. I mean, there was plenty wrong with me and plenty wrong in my family. I mean, my mom been married 14 times. The uncle lived there that was a wino. He was abusive to my sisters and my brother. I mean, it was a messed up, screwed up affair. But the point is, nobody back then said, hey, Bill, even though these things are happening to you, you still can make it. You can make what you want out of your life. Instead, they said, Bill, you're poor. All these bad things are happening to you. You're just predestined to be a failure. And most importantly, they sent a message that I can't have and be what other people are. So I did what the tree does when it falls in the forest. I took that information and I converted it into a belief system. I converted it into a system that made me a victim, that I wasn't responsible, that I couldn't be any different, that I didn't have to work as hard or be as good a person as other people. Until I finally took all this society's bullcrap into my mind and believed it and converted it in to I'm poor, so I'm destined to be no good. I won't be a success. My life is already predetermined by all these factors. The world owes me a living. I'm entitled. All that. I converted all that. Poor, pitiful Bill. I'll never amount to much because I'm poor. I mean, these people definitely help facilitate that type of thinking. Because you see, the worst part wasn't that I used it to get what I wanted from other people or to get out of something. The very worst part of this is I believed it. When I would get in trouble, I would go to my room and lay in my bed, and I would think it was my mom. She raised me like this, or she abandoned me, or that we were poor. If we wasn't poor and I didn't have this mom, I wouldn't be in this trouble. Now, the moment I started believing that, I lost all sense of responsibility. Therefore, I could point my finger outward on who needed to change, which was the world, and I never looked at the real thing that needed to change, which was me. So I could never find a solution to my life because the solution didn't lie outside of me. The solution lied inside of me. I was the solution. But listen, it wasn't real until I converted it to reality. Isn't that crazy? In other words, It was the knowledge that I was poor. It was the knowledge that, and all the things that went along with being poor. You know, you're not like the other kids. You don't have to make as, all that. You don't have to make as good as grades, or the knowledge of that I didn't have. It wasn't a reality. But you see, when it come time for the judgment, and old Bill goes up there, I got a free pass right straight through the pearly gates. You know why? Because I'm going to tell him I was poor. My mom, she made me like this. That ought to get me right in, you think? Kind of like us that need to work the program, but don't. I mean, we come up with a million excuses. I can't go to meetings. I don't have a driver's license. I don't read the big book. I don't have enough money to buy a big book. I'm not working. Well, no, I don't have a relationship with God. I'm mad at him. I'm not discounting that pain, but we take those situations and we convert it in our head. We make it into a reality, just like we do the sound, the air puffs. We turn it into a reality that best suits us. We turn it into something that's going to serve our own selfish, self-centered needs, just like I did for years. It's like we install this little converter or this filter. And this converter or filter is a selfish, self-centered converter and filter. So every information that comes from the external world, when it hits that converter, it's converted into what we want it to be. It's converted into selfish and self-centered purposes that help us obtain what we want. It doesn't necessarily have to be true. It's just that converter converts them the way we want them converted. It converts incidences in our lives that happen to us into victimization, and that we're victims and the whole world's against us and that we're entitled. It converts all that into that instead of having a spiritual converter or the principles of recovery converter, that when things happen to us, we run them through those principles, or we run them through that spiritual idea, and that it converts them to what is more healthy, what's more right, what's more true. Any time I got into trouble, I made sure that I fed back to the people that I was talking to what had been told me, that I was poor and that I didn't have parents. Therefore, I didn't have proper supervision. I wasn't raised right. Therefore, I do not have the same moral responsibility as the rest of the people. You can understand why I am an immoral person. I was poor. Poor people are not moral. They can't be. They don't have enough money to be moral. They don't have what the rest of people have. They're more moral than we are because they got nicer homes and clothes and cars and all that. I don't have that. So I'm not a very moral person, and I don't have to be. I got into that gig forever. But you know what? That wasn't reality. I converted that into the reality I wanted. I had a moral eardrum, so to speak, that turned all that stuff into what I wanted it to be turned into that would best serve me. And I stayed in that gig till it almost killed me. But because of a loving God, I was able to come out of that stuff and get a second chance at life. You know what surprises me in that story about Adam and Eve? I mean, it still kind of confuses me. I mean, I don't have a clear picture. I understand that some things are going to remain mysteries. But you know what kind of touched me? Is that after Adam and Eve did all that stuff and turned their environment into a violent environment like we have today, and had lost, that perfect relationship with God and all that, and God put what we call curses on them, and death entered the world at that time, and that was a good reason death entered, because who in the hell would want to live like this forever? I think that's a blessing instead of a curse. But anyway, death entered the world. Even after all that, he made clothes for Adam and Eve. How beautiful is that? He loved them. He made them real clothes, not fig leaves. He made them clothes that would probably protect them from the environment, that would make their life better, more comfortable. What a beautiful God that we have, just like he's done us. After we went out and drinking and drugging and stealing and lying and cheating, all the stuff we've done, what does he do? Gives us the AA program, the 12-step program, enters into our hearts and lives with us, makes sure that we're all provided for. I have never seen a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I mean a good member that's working the program. I've never seen him begging for bread out on the street corner, ever. If for nothing else, the other members wouldn't let it happen. He gave us that. He sewed us some clothes to get us through this life. And we need to get off our little pity pot. And like my good friend Lori said in that podcast on excuses. We need to quit making excuses. You know what Lori said? Let me tell you what she said. Then I'll shut up. She wrote me a little note, and she said, as alcoholics and addicts in recovery, we have to change our way of thinking. Many people don't know how. They say things like, I have to go grocery shopping. I have to go to work. I have to go to treatment and meetings. She went on to say that by changing one little word, they can change their way of thinking. She went on and said, look at the difference when they say, I get to go grocery shopping, I get to go to work, and I get to go to treatment and meetings. She said it changes everything. Well, you see, Lori has an eardrum, a spiritual eardrum, so to speak, that converts everything into gratitude. She's thankful she gets to go to work because, there was a time she couldn't go to work. She's thankful she gets to go grocery shopping. She has some money. And so when them bad things, so to speak, in the external world surround her and they start to go into her, she has this spiritual eardrum that converts them to gratitude. She's grateful to go to work, go grocery shopping, go to meetings. How cool is that? She said by changing that one little word, it changes everything. People, what kind of eardrum do you have? You sitting there with that self-pity, ungrateful, entitled eardrum? Or are you going to take your cross and be thankful that you get to bear it? Unlike the eardrum, you have a choice at the converter that you want to put in. You have a choice at how you want to respond and convert the information that comes to you from the external world. You can sit there and believe that you're a victim and get on your pity pot and give up on the program and God. Or you can take that converter and convert it through spiritual principles into something that's healthy for you and for others. And most importantly of all is don't believe the stuff that they're telling you. Because you see, you're probably believing it for selfish reasons. You're probably believing that you're mentally ill and you need all this medication, or you're mentally ill and you can't get a job and be a productive member of society, when in some cases that's just not true. But we want to believe that. We want to convert that information and let it go in there so we can lay around and not be responsible. We have to check our motives on why we're believing what we believe. Don't do what I did and give your life up to what people tell you by how they define you. Don't give your life up to your past and the many failures you've had. Give your life and will up to God and live by those spiritual principles. And when you trudge this road of happy destiny, you'll know the real meaning of to thy own self be true.
Thanks for listening to The Recovery Effect with Bill Vineyard. Check out more at therecoveryeffect.com and facebook.com/therecoveryeffect. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes.